According to latest reports, US-backed Iraqi forces have entered the first neighborhood in the western part of the city and have fully retaken the city's airport from Islamic State. The battle for the airport reportedly saw heavy clashes with militants inside several airport buildings. And as the frontline fight continues, Iraqi officials have confirmed that US-led coalition troops are with the advancing forces. And it comes as new footage is released showing American forces in Mosul. The troops were initially sent by the Obama administration to, quote, advise and assist the Iraqi army and not to take part in combat operations. However, recent statements from the Pentagon are raising questions about whether their role in Mosul has changed, as Gayane Chichikan explains.
The U.S. military is now confirming what many have believed all along. The American forces deployed to Mosul are engaged in the fight to drive ISIL out of the Iraqi city.
Our forces that have been in Mosul and other places around Iraq, they have come under fire at different times. They have returned fire at different times. When someone is shooting at you, that is combat.
You see, the word combat here is a big deal. Sending troops to fight overseas may backfire, but maybe less so if you say they're not fighting, they're just advising.
American forces will not be returning to combat in Iraq. We will not be sending U.S. troops back into combat in Iraq. I want to be clear. The American forces that have been deployed to Iraq do not and will not have a combat mission.
When someone is shooting at you, that is combat. Yes, that has happened.
When a member of Special Forces, Joshua Willer, was killed during a hostage rescue mission in 2015, officials said he wasn't there in a combat role, even though he was killed in combat.
It doesn't represent us assuming a combat role. It represents a continuation of our advise and assist mission.
And even when journalists published images of U.S. servicemen at the front line near Mosul last fall, officials would say, well, they weren't really at the front.
It's the Iraqis in the lead. The Iraqis are at the front, and Americans are providing in their advisory role, but they are behind the forward line of troops, and they are providing that same sort of advice and assistance that they have in Iraq previously.
But even then, under the Obama administration, to many, the mission advise and assist sounded like a euphemism for a larger role that the U.S. played in the operations.
President Obama got elected in 2008 on the promise to end what he called the stupid war in Iraq. He had to go back into Iraq in a big way. He had to send thousands of ground troops. So he had to disguise it, camouflage it, call it something other than what it is. He called it training and assisting advisors, just like John Kennedy said that was the U.S. role in Vietnam at the very first years in 1961 and 62. But yes, the American troops are there. They're there in a big way.
Military officials now saying that the troops are in combat, that they are at the front line, indicates that the tune is changing under the new administration. In Washington, I'm Gayane Chichikan, RT.
Breaking news on RT this hour. Iraq's carried out airstrikes on ISIL positions in Syria. The development was revealed by the Iraqi Prime Minister.
We are determined to chase terrorism that tries to kill our sons and citizens wherever it is found, so we gave orders to the Air Force Command to strike Islamic State positions in Husayba and Al-Buqamal inside Syrian territory as they were responsible for recent bombings in Baghdad.
Now, the airstrikes come right as Syrian peace talks have gotten underway in Geneva. So let's cross live now to our correspondent there, Peter Oliver, to get the latest on this developing story. Peter, bring us up to speed on the details that you have now.
Well, the talks between the United Nations mediator and the Syrian government and the opposition are taking place just behind me over my shoulder in the UN building here in Geneva. But as those talks are underway, we're getting this confirmation from the Iraqi Prime Minister, Haider al-Abadi, who said that his air force have carried out airstrikes on 2 targets inside of Syrian territory. Now, these two targets in Hasaba and Abu Kamal are understood to have been the staging point, the jumping off point for ISIS terrorists who carried out bombing attacks in Baghdad. The Iraqi Prime Minister saying that terrorism that tries to kill our sons and daughters was the reason that the Air Force had taken action. Now, previously, we'd heard from Damascus that they were against any violation of their sovereignty, that they didn't want foreign nations interfering on their side of the border. We're still yet to find out if there's any confirmation that this was given the green light from the government in Damascus, or whether Baghdad acted independently in launching these airstrikes. Understandably, there may be upset from Damascus if it turns out that that was done. However, we're waiting to see if this was done in cooperation with the Assad government in Damascus. These airstrikes, as I say, that have been carried out by the Iraqi government, by the Iraqi Air Force, on targets understood to belong to Islamic State on the Syrian side of the border.
Peter, and I'm sure you'll keep us up to date with any more details that come in. Peter Oliver in Geneva for RT. The announcement by the Iraqi PM followed his meeting with the head of the US Central Command, who earlier this week revealed the Pentagon's looking to scale up its operation against ISIL in Syria by sending in more troops.
I'm very concerned about maintaining momentum. It could be that we take on a larger burden ourselves. We might bring potentially more of our assets to bear if we need to, as opposed to relying on our partners. That's an option.
As of right now, the US already has its troops in Syria, but according to the Pentagon, their mission was only to train and assist local forces. Last year, images emerged showing US soldiers were on the ground in the country. Earlier, I discussed the Iraqi airstrikes in Syria with Mark Almond, director of the Crisis Research Institute in Oxford.
There is always a very sensitive area. We remember a few months ago the US Air Force carried out an airstrike officially directed at IS, but actually hitting the Syrian army. And if now the Iraqi Air Force strikes effectively against the IS forces, then the Syrian army position in this besieged city, which is also an important center for the energy industry of Syria, will be much improved. So it really depends on what the Iraqis are doing. I think that the most likely scenario is that the Iraqi government doesn't want to offend its US and Western allies by being seen to be too coordinated with Syria. So it may have used back channels and informal discussions with the Syrian government in order to clear what they're doing, to avoid the risk of their planes being shot at by Syrian anti-aircraft fire, for instance. There's a risk that if Iraq takes military action inside Syria without the agreement of the Syrian government, this helps further the decomposition of Syria into a space where foreign powers feel able to fight without the permission of the government in Damascus. And that, of course, risks that they come into conflict with each other. But also, from the point of view of Iraq itself, I think it's a very dangerous position because, after all, Iraq is vulnerable to foreign intervention. There has been foreign intervention in Iraq in recent times, everybody knows that. And at the same time, also, there are foreign forces and, if you like, quasi-independent forces like the Kurdish forces in the north. So for the Iraqi government to, if you like, gratuitously undermine the sovereignty of a neighbouring country risks backfiring into Iraq itself.
A second car bomb has reportedly exploded near the northern Syrian town of Al-Bab, killing at least 8 people. An earlier blast killed around 60 and wounded up to 100 more. The attacks come hours after Turkish media reported the town had been taken from Islamic State. These are the latest pictures from the area. The Turkish Prime Minister's confirmed 2 soldiers were among the victims of the first blast in what appears to be an ISIL attack. The town of Al-Bab is located about 25 kilometres south of the Syrian-Turkish border and used to be the terrorists' last stronghold in Aleppo province. The operation to retake the city began in August, with Turkish forces entering Syrian territory to support pro-Turkish rebels. It was aimed at pushing ISIL from the border, as well as neutralising Syrian Kurdish forces in the area, regarded as terrorists by Ankara.
Free Syrian army fighters say they've no doubt ISIL is responsible for this, a revenge attack after the FSA's capture of Al-Bab. Yet the vast majority of victims are civilians who were preparing to leave this village and go back to their homes in the city, waiting in their family cars or on motorbikes for clearance at an FSA checkpoint. A vehicle pulled up and exploded. It was a suicide attack. No warning, no chance of escape. As if these people hadn't suffered enough already, they managed to escape Al-Bab because of the continual bombardments aimed at ISIL fighters. If the victims had managed to make it home, many of them would have found it hard to recognize the city now. This would have been their destination. Even before the latest battles, it was in near ruins because of barrel bombs and airstrikes by Bashar al-Assad's air force. But this has been a big victory for the FSA. It wouldn't have been possible without the backing, though, of the Turkish military, which was more circumspect about announcing victory on Thursday. That was because of the danger of ISIL counterattacks. Mines and booby-trap bombs are in the rubble, and the FSA is cautiously inspecting a network of tunnels that have been used by many ISIL fighters for attack and escape. One FSA source says civilians were forced to work in dangerous conditions digging out these tunnels. It had taken more than 2 weeks with often intensive close combat for the FSA, backed by Turkey, to take Al-Bab.
The reason our advance got delayed was because of civilians, car bombs and mines. Also the tunnels, and such heavy resistance from ISIL.
The FSA hasn't revealed the number of its men killed in the fighting, and there's no record of civilian casualties during the battle for Al-Bab. But it's believed the number dead could be in the hundreds.